Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Pej Vahdat about The Old Man, which recently premiered on FX. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me, man. Good to see you.
We were chatting a little bit before we were setting up, doing a tech check. I mean, it's a crazy thing where, like, you know, people saw the announcement for this show, who was like attached, who you'd be working with, and like, it's finally out. Like, it's pretty crazy, right? Like, you make this and like people could see it.
It's so wild because when I got it, it's been 2.5 years since we started. So
Yeah.
at some point you're like, wait, I did that, right? So, but yeah, now it's out and people are seeing it and talking about it. And like my friends and family are like, what? This is the best show. They're so excited. And it's so weird.
What's that like when you, because you've been attached to a lot of projects, Bones Dynasty, where it's just kind of like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like the scales are so high. What's like the mindset, like preparation wise, signing on to a project where there's a lot of characters, it's big scale in terms of what's happening? Like what can you tell me about that a little bit?
Well, for me, it's mainly about I zone in on just the guy, right?
Yeah.
Whoever I'm playing, what's the world he's in, what, you know, my main objective is to be the best I can in that particular character. So that's all I focus on. I try not to think about who's involved. I mean, this was different because it was a little harder when it's Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow. But
Yep.
my number one focus has been to make sure I portray the character as real and as genuine as possible, whether it's The Old Man or Bones or Shameless or Dynasty or City on a Hill or whatever I'm doing. I just want to make sure I'm doing the very best I can. And that's what I focus on as best I can. I try not to think about the scope of everybody involved. You know what I mean?
Yes, Shameless. Wow. Forgot about that.
Oh, you forgot about Shameless?
Well, that was a while
It
ago.
was 10 years ago. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
I don't know. Like you're gonna go back and see this like playback of this interview, and you said like Shameless, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Every time someone says, "What do I know you from?" And then I go, "Well, what am I gonna say? You want me to list off my resume?" But then, like, I know what it could be.
Yeah, but that was
either Bones or Shameless. You know,
but that was a massive storyline, right? That kind of set up Ian. So that was a big storyline, right?
Huge storyline. But I was also younger, a little heavier. I look different, and now people see me a little older. I'm like, oh my, just like what you did. You're Cash. Oh shit. You know? Oh,
and then,
sorry.
like, I've interviewed like Marguerite Moreau as well before.
Oh,
so like, but like it's funny because it's like that was a big think about. We'll get back to The Old Man, but like think about the fact that how many storylines there are in that show. Like think about it.
Yeah.
And that's like one that I always like.
Pops off.
Yeah, the store, the convenience store.
Oh yeah. I mean, having an affair as a man who's married, who's Muslim with children, with a teenage boy, it's like, whoa, that shit's wild.
It's crazy. No, that show is just wild. But The Old Man, like Jeff Bridges, John Lithgow, I mean, it's amazing and everything. The show kind of has a lot kind of happening, and some kind of moments of it's like a slow burn, and some moments it's like 0 to 100. What did you kind of notice when you were reading the scripts for this about the pace and everything, specifically with The Old Man?
I just thought that I actually thought the writing was genius.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely.
It captured my attention. So that's when I know something's good.
Yep.
Is when I can just burn through it.
Yep.
You know, a lot of scripts, unfortunately, you're going, okay, you're like, yeah, let's go. You know what I mean? This was like, I didn't want to even miss a stage direction. It's that well done. So like, and when I start imagining the scene in my head, that's when I really know it's good.
Yeah.
And I was just seeing everything going on, and I knew who was involved, so I could see them doing it.
Yeah.
So it was very well written. So for me, I was just like, this is one of the best series I've ever read in my life, and I can't believe I'm a part of it.
And that's like an exciting feeling, right?
Oh
like
yeah,
the
I mean,
best,
you do this.
right? Yeah.
You dream to be an actor when you start out, and of course, you're grateful for all the jobs you get. But then sometimes you get something like this, and you're like, "Oh shit, someone pinched me! Like this is happening."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So And it's been that way from getting it to reading it to rehearsing for it to actually shooting it and then watching it. I was just like, wow, this is nuts.
Two kind of general questions for you, Pej, that you can kind of link back to The Old Man. Like first one a little bit, you know, flashbacks I feel like are just a huge part of content. I feel like, you know, shows like Lost and everything kind of set that up when I was younger, and then it became kind of a big thing. It's interesting how flashbacks are being used in TV and film. There are different ways. What do you think as an actor and as a storyteller about flashbacks and how they're used these days in storytelling?
It's tricky because if you don't do it right, it can go really wrong, you know, obviously. So like with this, it was interesting to me that I didn't even think about we were doing a flashback scene.
Yeah.
I was just thinking me and Bill Heck are in this world right now because the writing, but the direction, every director we had was just incredible.
Yep.
And you'll see in 3 and 4, Greg Yatanis, he's amazing. But also the set design was so specific that you couldn't help but feel like you're in Afghanistan in the 80s. You just couldn't help it. And the clothing and everything, every little component was so specific to the animals that we had on set, to, you know, the stone they used, to everything, to our wardrobe, of course. It made us realize, we felt like this is present day. Yeah. We weren't feeling anything other than that. You know, we weren't thinking we were doing a period piece. So that's key, I think. If you do it like that, specifics, then the flashbacks really add to the story instead of people going, all right, let's go back to the real, you know, what's going on now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you mentioned like 80s Afghanistan, then is one of the first things that kind of come to mind when you're doing like a flashback in like an era back in the day. Is aesthetic one thing that also instantly comes to mind right away as well? Because I feel like that's the whole name of the game, right? Like what's it going to look like?
Of course. Yeah, that's key. I mean, if it doesn't look real, then people are going to immediately lose. Because
you know how many movies we probably watched where we're like, this is supposed to be in the 70s?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, this is bullshit. You know, who the hell did this? But, oh, shit, I keep swearing. I'm so sorry.
No, it's great. Of course.
It's okay.
It's bullshit,
but
Pej. It's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Okay, yeah.
Like, do the work, do the research. Our set designer is so brilliant. I remember walking onto my particular main set of like where Hamzad lives, you know, in the village, and I was walking around, and you would notice things that the camera. There's no way a camera's gonna pick this up.
Yeah,
you know, and it was to the T. I'm one to look around. That's how I like to operate. I want to see and feel everything I'm in, and there wasn't a thing other than the cameras and lights, of course, that made me feel like I'm not living in this home in the 80s in Afghanistan. It was unreal. Yeah. And they showed us the original pictures of things they were finding, you know, they were doing it off research. And it was like, oh my God, you guys how do you do this? You know, they're unsung heroes. Yeah. I really think they need to be talked about more, actually, as this show is seen more, as the show keeps going. I think I'm going to particularly talk about, I'm grateful you brought it up, actually, that how important they are to the story.
100%. No, absolutely. And this one is like, I mean, The Old Man, in terms of what kind of genre, what kind of show it is, like I've watched it, like it kind of knows its identity. Like you kind of know what you're getting yourself into, you know what I mean? Yes. But there is a lot of genre bending, Pej, happening in storytelling these days.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, like, do you think it's premeditated, or do you think it just kind of happens? Like, I don't feel like someone woke up and is like, I want to make a comedy horror. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it's premeditated.
Yeah.
I think it's just sometimes shit doesn't work, you know, and you find it when you get there, and it's no one's fault, because it's so hard to make something good, you know. People, it's not lack of trying or creativity or anything. It's just like anything, you got to keep trying till you hit, right? And it's really difficult to get something good. So I think a lot of circumstances that are not under their, you know, creators' control happen, and they have to go with the punches to make the story come out somehow. And I don't really blame them. It's because now that I know how the sausage is made, you know, without, you know, for lack of a better term, I have more empathy for these creators, because
100%.
sometimes it's not up to them, and they have to go with the punches, to put food on the table.
No, 100%. And just you talk about food, and just reminds me of the grocery store, and it reminds me of Shameless. Sorry.
Listen, I Shameless changed my life, man. I'm grateful. I can talk about that all day. I love those guys. But Steve Howie, Bill Macy. I mean, forget about
Steve Howie.
Let me tell you something about Steve Howie.
Go for it.
Truly one of the nicest, most talented human beings I've ever met.
Kev is like the most important TV show character of Eddie. It's the best. I know, right?
That's how good an actor he is.
Yeah. Like if anything would happen,
he's underrated as an actor, in my opinion, because he's an attractive guy, and he's like this big burly dude, and you're not giving him the credit that you would say a character actor, if that makes sense.
But we always worried what's going to happen to Kev? What are they going to do with Kev, right? And it's funny
he's
you mentioned
so
that. But it's funny you mentioned that because you look at obviously Stranger Things, right? And Joe Keery, who plays Steve, it's the same thing, right? Everyone's like, no, fan favorite, we don't kill him off and stuff like that, because he's just so good at kind of these actors are just so good at selling you in, basically. You know what I mean?
I mean, John Wells.
Yeah.
Listen, you can't mess with John Wells.
Yeah.
That guy's brilliant.
Yeah.
So and it's funny you say that, because now Shameless is kind of similar for me if I look back at the excitement of this show, The Old Man, with the people involved and the writing and everything that I was too young to get it at the time. I just was so grateful to be on a show, as I always am, but I didn't even know the scope or, oh my God, this show is so revolutionary and genius.
But that's part of the pitch, right? The behind
I just don't want to get fired.
But that's the pitch though, right? You look at The Old Man and you look at okay, John Lithgow, Jeff Bridges, cool, sold, you know what I mean? But then who wrote it, who directed it? Oh my goodness. You know what I mean?
Right.
I look at it now, who wrote this? Who directed this? That's a thing. With horror, especially in horror movies. That's the big one too.
Definitely.
It's so great. But I feel like it's premeditated now, though, the genre bending. Because I feel like it's a trend. It's a thing now. It's a shtick a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you a big horror guy?
I'm a huge horror guy. And my favorite thing about the horror genre is the situations where there's the psychological, there's the different ways to scare you, there's someone said something to someone, it's oh my God, why did he say that? You know what I mean? People are scary. But then there's horror movies where there's characters that are just goofy guys, right? That say something that they're not supposed to be funny, but you laugh, right? So it naturally it naturally becomes genre bending, Pej. Yeah,
I guess you're right. Yeah. I mean, for me, horror films are too stressful, dude. I don't know how you do it. I can't watch that stuff. It's I just read for a horror film recently, and it was such a good script. I was getting anxious and nervous. I'm what the fuck, dude?
One of the greatest things that, and I always don't say who it is, because I always want people to go find the interview, because it wasn't brought up on the interview, but I did an interview for a horror movie with an actor, and she said that it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, but she's terrified of horror movies.
Yeah,
and she acts in it. She's the lead. So
I'll act in it all day.
I thought that was the most interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
You make
maybe because when you're acting in it, yes, you're going to be scared a little if you get into it, really. But but once you're with the music and the lighting and all the stuff that comes along with the film while you're watching it, it's just so your heart's
it's so crazy. Getting back to The Old Man before we wrap up, they're going to be able to see this on FX. Episodes are coming out. People are going to check it, and Hulu as well. Hulu is rocking it lately. Who just talked about that? Rocking it. Isn't it cool? And that's my next question then, before my other question is is it cool to be part of a streaming platform where there's a lot, it's a hot time for Hulu right now, right?
It is so cool. I mean, I geeked out when they followed me on Twitter. What am I doing? I work for you. Why am I geeking out? But I don't want to ever stop geeking out, no matter how successful I get or whatever. I love that I geek out. And I'm so stoked to be working for Hulu and FX, because especially right now, they're both, I mean, my good buddy is on What We Do in the Shadows. Is that how you say it? Yep. Is that it?
Yeah.
And
so good.
And then and Lil Dicky, that show with that guy, I love that show.
Yeah.
And then of course, Atlanta, and go on and on. Snowfall, these are exciting.
There was
things
one of my favorites from FX was a show called You're the Worst. Do you remember that one? That was
I heard about that. I never saw that.
That was a really good one. Oh, it's good.
FX does great stuff. So you feel complimented.
It's slice of life, right? Like we love the sitcom slice of life, but there's just so much happening. When they watch The Old Man on FX or Hulu, shout out to Hulu, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Popturnitive's Instagram account, like the interactions too, like we'll post because we're big fans of their shows like Pen 15 and everything. Pen 15. We'll post like back and forth, and like there's a banter between Hulu's social media and Popturnit. It's the best thing.
That.
It's awesome.
I love that.
But when they watch The Old Man, Pej, what are you hoping they get out of it takeaway wise? Because there's a lot, but can you kind of narrow it down a little bit?
Without giving too much away, I hope people get out of it that, when you see someone later in life, you don't know how they got there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what journey they went on. Sometimes you judge someone older, or even when they're younger, but when they're older and you just immediately go, what a piece of shit, or what a curmudgeon, or whatever. But if you see the story, which you will, and how certain things happen to people in life, I hope people go, oh man, I hope they have empathy for people. That's what I hope.
Okay. No, absolutely. Pej, this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming on Popturnitive.
Oh, dude, anytime. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, so it's available. It recently premiered, so people are going to be able to check that out on FX and Hulu. And Hulu follows you on social media, so I want to give a chance for
shout out
my people, like my viewers, to follow you on social media. Where can people follow you on social media?
It's Pej Vahdat, PEJVAHDAT, and that's it. And on Instagram and Twitter, and that's. I can't do the TikTok. I'm too old.
Oh, absolutely. I have a TikTok, but I don't have a TikTok. Do you know what that means?
I'm just too lazy.
No, but
it's a lot of work.
Like, to check out things. Like we made like a pet account
for
my dog, and we just look at things.
Dog?
I have a Morkie. He's pretty big on Instagram. He has over 100. He has over 140,000 followers on Instagram. Yeah. He's a big deal.
Tell him to follow me. What is this?
I will. I'll follow you right after this interview. Well, this has been Popturnitive, youtube.com/Popturnitive. Previous episodes, Pej Vahdat is in The Old Man on FX and Hulu. Until next time, this is Pej and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popturnitive. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popturnitive on YouTube. Be sure to like Popturnitive on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.